43. Okay, Carla, do you want to go through your revenue lines and sort of just give an overview of those?
Okay. Okay, so on the revenue lines, as far as the first section up there, a little bit of an increase in all the revenue lines. Nothing substantial. We're not adding any new business license. We anticipate the same number of dog license, rental registration with the new program. That's kind of an unknown, but just a little bit of a bump there. In the second tier there, the administrative services, the transit guest tax, that's that portion that we collect and goes into the general fund as administrative. That one probably needs to be bumped up just a little bit. We talked about that, and I think maybe it just didn't get in the changes, but that's probably more in line to about $9,000 in 2020, maybe a little bit more, but I think 9,000 is probably a good place to start for a projection for 2020 on that. So again, there's not really any anticipated new fees that are going to be coming through or any increases. So pretty much steady on revenue for the clerk's office, other than the transit guest tax. And then moving down to expenses, obviously personnel expense, as with all the budgets, that's where we'll see an increase within my budget in my department. And then again, the clerk's budget isn't that exciting. You know, I used to follow Park and Recs, which was a really fun budget for everybody, and then it was like, oh, here's me. So anyway, it's just the administrative costs. We don't anticipate any big increases. The only increase is the insurance, and the bulk of the commercial insurance through the city is through my budget. So our insurance broker, in talking with him, said to anticipate probably about a 4% increase in our insurance coverage. So again, that is probably one of the lines that has the bulk of the increase for expenses.
Are you covering insurance for this just isn't the insurance for the clerk?
Buildings.
No.
All the buildings, so it's all being...
Yeah, the majority of, there's a few things that we break out into other departments that have their own funds, but everything else, anything, yes, anything that's insured and is part of the general fund is in my department, so all the liability insurance.
I know that we're responsible for like 22% of the Justice Center. Do we pay part of that insurance, or is that rolled up someplace else?
I think that's rolled up into what they charge us.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it comes over.
Yeah, they have a quarterly breakdown, and that's included in
So we don't have to worry about the insurance in that one. Okay.
Yeah, not here in that line item anyway, so.
On legal advertising, I know there was always a requirement that you put the legals in the paper, and we have an official paper. I think we use Leavenworth Times, but its circulation's down. I don't know if anyone knows, down to like 1,200. It's way down from 15,000 30 years ago. But there was a bill a couple years ago saying, and I don't know if it passed or not, that you can do it online. I'm not necessarily recommending that, because that would really be the death of the Leavenworth Times, because that they make a lot of money on their advertising. Yeah. But can you do that now?
No, it still is required that we publish it in the paper.
A newspaper of record.
The newspaper. What they did do a few years ago is allow us to do summary publications of ordinances.
Okay.
So we don't have to publish the entire ordinance. We just do that top paragraph that's in the ordinance, and that's the summary. And then we're required.
I like it, the whole thing.
Yeah, and then we're required, and if you read those, it provides the link that you can see it all from our website.
Okay.
But there's still, when we have public hearings, those kind of things, we still have to publish those in full. And there hasn't been anything yet. And I know, again, they talked about it just in this last session, and I don't know how far it went, but it obviously didn't pass, about, again, also being able to just publish it on your own website. And I know some of those smaller cities that don't have papers
Yeah. that's
that
the
publish,
next
you know,
question.
that maybe only once a week. So I know it's been a burden on some of them to find a newspaper that they can publish.
Yeah,
So we're so fortunate that we have one.
let's hope it stays.
Yeah.
Tough business.
Beyond that, like I say, there's just not a lot that we're anticipating increased pricing on, just general increase, you know, as anything goes up. Codification services, I know we're doing the big recodification right now, but that's always an ongoing thing. Anytime we have throughout the year that we pass ordinances and it has to be updated. There's also just the maintenance fees of maintaining that, our code online and the book and the services that they provide that company to do legal reviews and those types of things. So
Question, back to the licenses and permits, what is
Sure.
the rent registration?
the rent registration, that is right now, when somebody, they still are required to register their property.
Okay,
So anytime anybody has new property, new rental property, that's that registration fee that they charge, or that we charge for that. Okay. Like I say, it's just not that exciting, and I'm sorry, but if you have a question about something, I'll make it as exciting as I can.
Any other questions for Carla or the city clerk's office?
Thank you.
Oh, thank
Thanks,
you,
Carla.
thank you.
Go ahead and go to IT or information technology. Looks like 45.
The IT budget is going up in 2020. There's two reasons for that. There's two main categories in my department that comprise the most of my budget. One is telephone, the other is software hardware maintenance.
What page are you looking at?
45.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
The last page of finance.
Finance, got it, okay, got it, thank you.
The telephone budget is going up because this year you guys opted to allow the public safety to do FirstNet. And I do pay that bill, so that has gone up. The software maintenance, hardware maintenance is going up because in 2017, we did that huge project that we had a lease for, a 3-year lease that covered the equipment and maintenance on it. We made the last payment in 2019 in January, so we will then have to start paying maintenance on that hardware, starting in 2020. So that's the reason those two went up. The software maintenance, hardware maintenance, I don't really have much control over. We have to, you know, pay
Licensing.
the licensing fees and stuff like that for support on all the equipment and everything. Other than that, the budget pretty much stayed the same except for those two line items.
Does 911 call center come out of your budget or PD?
No, it does not.
PD.
The 911 call center mostly comes out of the 911 funds that Chuck McGaha is in charge of, and we pay those fees to what we get on the telephone stuff. Those go to Chuck, and then they have a board that they, you know, deposit money or distribute money from. So anything to do with dispatch, stuff like that, comes out of 911 funds.
Okay.
How about information assurance? Or, I mean, just generally, in 30 seconds or, I mean, in terms of maintaining information assurance as far as the network, you know, making sure we have a secure network. What is there money in the budget for that? And
Well, there's a couple of things. We are in the middle of installing some equipment that monitors network traffic, so we can see if there's anything
malicious, yeah, right.
coming in. We do have firewalls. We have firewalls at the police department. We have firewalls here. We did, as part of that project in 2017, we almost do triple backups. So we back up locally, we back up, the servers are all backed up every 2 hours, and then it goes out in the cloud. So if we had ransomware, which we have had before, but we've always been able to restore from backups, we've always had good backups. So now, you know, we kind of have triple that insurance on that.
Is part of the, in terms of the firewalls and everything, that's software that has to be updated. I don't know if it's
Yes.
yearly, but I mean, is that part of the software maintenance?
Yes.
And of course, we have spam filtering and.
Oh, yes, we have
and-
malware filtering, spam filtering, virus protection on all the machines.
Do you do any training in terms of like the phishing stuff, or, you know, they do that a lot in the.
We
a lot
try
of-
to put that
yeah.
out, I try to put that out several times a year.
Yeah.
You know, I know there was an incident,
Ruby is blushing, right?
where
now.
Ruby came out,
Everybody says,
virus,
we know we're talking about Ruby.
And that's one of the reasons we don't like Dropbox, is because
Right.
that's exactly what it mimicked.
Sure, okay.
It's surprising how many people actually never even heard of Ruby, but went out and put their information in. I mean, I've heard of Ruby, but, you know, things that, and I try to tell them, you know, if you're not expecting it, and you don't know who, I mean, especially if you don't know who it's from, you know, just check before you open it,
Right.
so.
Right. Don't open it. When in doubt, don't open it,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
I think people just assume though, since it was coming through the city, that it's all safe. and
Oh,
that's
yeah,
not
that's
necessarily
real,
true.
that's really a good technique.
So,
Ask the
And they are
DNC
getting-
about
did
that.
you open up the one from did you open
I
up?
didn't open it up, no.
Well, and I saw, it just sounded too casual, and I wrote back, I said, is this for real? Yeah, go ahead and do it, and that's exactly what they wrote back. I said, Ruby wouldn't say it like that.
Yeah, it's, they're getting very, very
Yes,
sophisticated.
that's why I asked.
It's,
Their
sometimes
grammar's
it's
getting
really
better,
hard to
too.
tell.
What?
Their grammar is getting better
Oh,
too.
Yeah.
But
it's hard to
you
tell.
do think you have the resources to, you know, put up that wall and to protect, you know, the
I
network?
believe we do.
Okay,
Yeah, what was it? I think
You
I
know,
was
we're
looking back,
under
I-
so many guidelines
Was it
from KCGIS, which is Kansas
middle of
Criminal
June
Justice
when they had that,
System.
a city in Florida had to pay $600,000
Right,
to get
Yes.
their data.
Right.
I sent that to Carol.
Which is
Oh,
really,
man.
which is really surprising that, you know, they didn't have good backups. I mean, that's all it really takes on ransomware, is
Yeah, well,
to
that's good.
restore. You might lose a little bit of data, obviously, because you know, it's not backed up every second, but,
Yeah.
and like I said, we have had it before, it's been several years, but we've recovered very easily, so.
Yeah, and we're really hopeful with the network monitoring software through SolarWinds, who we have some other products with, that we'll be able to monitor the network more closely and optimize it so that we're able to get all the bandwidth that we need
Yeah.
and see what's happening. Because right now, we're not exactly able to pinpoint who's using what, and so we'll be able to make things faster.
Yeah, and especially like the police videos, sometimes they have issues, and we would like to see exactly where it's following from when that data leaves the police car till it gets to the server. We're believing that it actually comes to City Hall first because we have the internet connection. And if that's the case, you know, there's a way that, you know, we may come back and say that we need to put an internet connection at the police department because, that way it would save a lot of time and bandwidth problems that we may have. So, really excited about getting it set up. It's gonna be pretty complicated, but, we start that tomorrow, as a matter of fact, so.
Is there any reason to come back to the commission on that, or not? Is that just something you're gonna do?
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
just have to wait and see.
Okay.
You know, we have to monitor it for a while and see how things are going.
Thank you.
Exciting times. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Okay, human resources. So their budget's not exciting, but Lana can talk maybe about health insurance. I don't know
That's
how-
really not
Her favorite
exciting.
subject, we know that, yeah.
16.
Thank you.
Page
Page 16.
It's easier if you already know the page.
Lana, I'll just let you go through, and if there's anything in there that you want to point out, in the actual line item budget, there's not much. You know, the only thing that kind of goes up and down is tuition reimbursement. And Lana will tell you, sometimes we hit that, sometimes we don't. It kind of depends on the employees we have, where they are in their careers. Maybe if they need to get to a certain level and they know in 2 years there's going to be a vacancy and they need to get their associates or their bachelor's or their master's, that'll spike up. And it's not big enough to really adjust year to year, so we usually leave it about the same, and it usually fluctuates right around that 20,000 every once in a while.
And on tuition reimbursement, whatever course of study the employee wants to take, you payback, or does it have to be?
It has to be within a related function within the city. So it does
Okay.
not necessarily, for PD, it does not necessarily have to be PD, but usually if they're going for like a master's, it's in public administration, so that they could transfer it and use it elsewhere within the city. But they couldn't go for a nursing degree because we have no nursing
I think
positions
we
there.
had a.
So it
an
does have to
animal
be
control
a
or
business.
something Want to do a nursing, and we said, you know, that, we don't have a medical thing within the city, so.
Right.
that's
Right.
not-
Yeah,
That makes sense,
good.
okay.
Yeah, I never
I
knew
go
that.
back and get my art degree, you know.
But from that standpoint, they can apply for classes that are gen ed requirements, so they do not have to be
Right.
degree program in order for the reimbursement to apply. So they could qualify for reimbursement for Comp One because that's general course of study and still be going
Okay.
for that nursing
Oh, that's
program.
That's good.
That's
So-
good, so at least part of it could.
So portions of it, yes, could potentially be
great.
covered.
You're knocked out.
You have to have certain grades, right?
Yes, C or above for bachelor's and B or better for master's. And 2-year, we implemented several years ago, the 2-year payback. So if they leave the city in less than 2 years, then graduated system of paying back that tuition reimbursement.
That's a great benefit.
Going back to school.
Other than that, most of the other line items for us are pretty stable and consistent. Our counseling services is our EAP benefit for all employees. The medical services and the lab services are two that we've had some fluctuation on, and we'll continue to have fluctuation on that. That is for our pre-employment testing, our random drug screens, our pre-employment physicals, physical capacity profiles for police and fire, and any of the special testing, whether it's fitness for duty, whether it's reasonable cause. So any of that, we have now been through three different providers in about the last 12 to 18 months, whether they have pulled out of the local area, whether they have lost docs and no longer provide the service, or just have not had a great level of service from them. So we just recently met with Jennifer Brockhoff from Advanced Health System Services, and they are currently located in Atchison and will be moving to Leavenworth in the old Pro Rehab building by CVS on July 22nd. So
The old,
Yeah.
the old
that's
Pro
right, I
Rehab
heard about that.
behind
That's good.
CVS. So they are leasing or buying that one and hope to start out strong with 3 full days a week, and hope by the first of the year, hope to be here 5 days a week. They have 2 dedicated physicians, an RN, and 2 different techs that are assigned to the Leavenworth facility for those 3 days. So they have given us a pricing breakdown. We've added a few others, like our bomb tech recertification, that they are giving us pricing on as well. So far, they have met or beat a couple of the pricings that we have had to, hate to say, but jump to in order to provide the services. So when the current Select Physical Therapy, who was doing our drug screens for us, basically we got about 2 days' notice when they were no longer offering that. So we had to jump through hoops and go to Concentra down in Kansas City, who charged us more than double what we were paying at Select PT. So luckily, Advanced Health Services have come in and basically matched the Pro Rehab rates or Select PT rates that we were paying. So we're hoping by July 22nd to have some stability and going forward, have one level of service and a local level of service.
And what's the name of that place again? Advanced?
Health
And-
Systems Services.
Are they, and they're just doing lab services, not a doctor's clinic?
They are doctors, yes.
Oh,
They will
so
be
that-
doing
and
our
it's
work
new-
comp.
is new
They will be
doctors
doing our work comp
group
as well,
coming
so
in.
the occupational medicine, yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
And they do this?
So they are currently in Atchison Hospital. They're expanding their services, so they will still have the Atchison services, but they have hired new staff to staff the Leavenworth clinic
So
as well.
Couple MDs, couple days a week,
Mm-hmm.
couple nurses. Good.
Yep. So that we're very gratefully looking forward to having, again, a local presence again, because it's been troublesome to say the least with the services we've had down at Concentra. So, looking forward to that, but until we get consistent, that has been probably one of, or 2 of the line items that have fluctuated the most for us over the last 12 months. And just heard from, so we are, I don't want to say this is anywhere close to a final, but about an hour ago, received an email from United Healthcare excuse me, the initial is coming in right at about 16%. That is without any plan design changes, without any going back to the underwriters and UHC kind of pushing the buttons to say, hey, they've been a client of ours for 15 years, it's not something we want to lose. It is not taking into consideration the renewal of the vision, which gave us a group discount for having both lines of service. It's not taking into consideration if we add the dental through them as well. Having all 3 lines of service through United Healthcare, that would give an even larger discount. So there's still wiggle room that we are working with, but as of right now, with no design changes, we're at about 16%.
That's
The poker game
crazy.
begins
Our
now.
That's crazy.
experience over the last
The
12
poker
months has
game
been
begins
horrendous.
now, 'cause it's-
Yeah, well,
that's what goes every year.
those rates are based off your experience over the last 12 months, or rolling 12 months, and I think the last time that I knew it, it was at 126% of experience, so that is based on our claims. We've had a couple very high, so we've exceeded our premiums and paid out costs over a rolling 12-month. Now, sometimes we go back and say, that's resolved in some way or another. And the other thing I'll give
This year has not.
Lana and her team credit for is we have made multiple presentations to the employee council, letting them know that plan design changes could be on the horizon, and they've been very good. I give them credit, very understanding that, 16 is not what we're gonna budget. We're gonna budget 8, and so if we can't get it down, it'll be plan design changes that get us down to 8 or below.
That's tough.
Yeah, because that's what this budget's built on, right, 8%?
Budget's built- Yes. Yeah. So we will get there one way or the other, whether it's increasing employee contributions, whether it's a plan design change,
Or moving a plan.
or moving the
Design.
plan, which is the last resort, because you hate to do that, because you're gonna get a first year
Yeah.
of a 5%, and then you're
Yeah.
gonna get a
Big
25%
jump.
increase.
Right.
And United's been, I speak for Lana, because I've, been involved in these deals with her, been very good to work with. So we'll get there one way or another, but that's the battle that we're running now, we have to cut that increase in half.
But they look at one catastrophic thing, they don't look at the whole history.
They actually do a
history.
3-year history, so the 12-month, as Paul mentioned, the 12-month rolling calendar year, so they look at the last 12 months as a portion of what they're calculating. They look at the last 3 years as the other
Okay,
portion,
okay, I
and then
wondered
they
about
look
that.
at the Kansas City, Kansas and Missouri market of
Market.
employers are same size.
Okay.
Not necessarily our same group, so it's not government, but our same size. So those are the 3 factors that make up the
Okay.
overall increase when they calculate the numbers, and that's based on a strict formula, and from there they tweak it. So the 16% is a little bit of a tweak from that standard formula, but not
enough.
100%.
Yeah.
That's the first number that came out,
It's huge.
so.
Lana, what's the stop loss?
500, I believe it is.
Once you have 500 out of pocket, then they pick up 100%?
Then, for our employees.
Yes.
I thought you meant for the large claims before it went outside of United Healthcare. No, depends on which plan you're under.
Yeah.
If you're on
Anywhere
the,
from
whatever the regular,
1,500
not the
to-
high option, the regular plan.
1,500 to 2,500 is the range.
Of stop. So if you have $100 bill, they're probably paying 80%, you're paying 20. And once you have 1,500 out of pocket,
That's for the buy
Then-
it the best plan.
and then that's the high option.
Right,
What about the
2,000,
regular
2,000 for the next one, and then 2,500 for the high deductible.
Those are very liberal plans.
We
you
still
know.
have a very good plan.
Yeah, no,
We-
that's an
we've-
outstanding plan.
With only
actually come down a little
$250
bit,
deductible.
And we recognize that, and we've held that as sort of a card to,
That's how you entice employees.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Exactly,
But we
yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
that's, I would say in the 98th percentile of industry standards for
Oh, yeah.
health insurance.
Definitely.
Major companies, everything else. I mean,
I
it
think
is a
there's
very,
only
very.
1 or 2 in Leavenworth that even come close to offering something similar.
Yeah, that's a very good plan. And I know that you need that employees, but there is a hell of a cost to it, as you well know. And
Do employees pay part of that too, right?
Yes.
So an average plan, mid-range plan, what do the employees pay a month if it's a family plan?
Oh, for family?
Yeah,
The buy-up plan is roughly about $450 to $500 a month. The base plan, which is what we base our contributions on, is right about, help me, Michelle? 420? 420, and then the
That's
high
terrible.
deductible is about $250 to $300 a month.
yeah.
What about just an individual employee?
Employee only, the high deductible plan costs them nothing. The 80% plan costs them $44, $40 to $50 a month, and then the best plan costs them about $110 a month.
Okay.
We've
Yeah, that's
we
So they are
increased
paying-
that last year.
Right,
The
they are
single-
paying
yeah.
100% of the buy-up cost from the 80% plan to the best, the richest plan we have.
And when they buy, whichever plan they buy, the city has provisions through finance, they're taking that money pre-tax.
Correct.
So, okay.
All of our employees, with the exception of, I believe, the public defenders who have coverage through us as well, all of our employees are signed up under the Section 125 plan, so it is all pre-tax, except for the public defenders who do it after tax.
And there's a flex account possible for all, medical flex for all
Flex spending, yes.
employees? Good.
For unreimbursed medical as well as a dependent daycare.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good. And those are very, very nice plans, and I'm not by any means intimating that you need to change them. I mean, the employees look at the whole picture, and it is
You do.
outstanding, but there's nothing we need to be ashamed about on our plans. But I know what you have to do. You have to,
Well, it's just,
we got
it's a shame
8% to
that
play with.
individual pays $44, but a couple would pay $400. I mean, that's one reason why people like my son never got married, because he has an individual health plan, and he has health problems, and his girlfriend has health problems, and she has an individual plan. But if you're a family, you gotta pay
Yeah.
10 times as much.
But if,
times as
but
much
if,
out of pocket.
using this, but if they both had their, she gets her plan through one option, one company, he, if they got married, they could still
Still
keep their,
keep each one.
yeah, they keep it at the same thing.
I didn't realize that.
He just told you that because you're trying to get him to get married, and he said, this is why I'm not. You didn't realize it. Yeah. And tell your son he's got a weak excuse for not making his mother proud. Yeah.
That's funny.
The only other thing is, I'm able to speak confidently about the compensation and classification study, but there's your expert. So if you have any other questions on, what it did, how, Commissioner Griswold had asked about, it changed pay scales, and I mentioned that it changed pay scales, it changed, the grades of the employees, we realigned the grades to the market. I don't think I missed anything, but if you have any questions about the compensation and classification study, Lana lived and breathed that for a year.
Not that I wanted to, but yes.
Is that what it took, a year? Did it take a year to do, basically?
A little over, from start to finish.
Were you happy with the results? I mean, in terms of the product that they
That they
produced,
provided,
in terms of
yes.
the quality of their
Yes.
work and,
They gave us the aggregate information as far as all of the market survey information, the cities that responded, the cities that didn't respond, positions, how many were matched in each grade, the outline of the points, which we are still using now. So as part of that comp study, they provided their SAFE analysis, which is the salary structuring of the positions based on 10 different categories that we evaluate based on the job duties. So it goes anywhere from supervisory to level of independence to autonomy in doing the job to the education requirements of the position. So with all of those factors, we basically assign a point value, which is, if you remember, Mark, under the old Hay system,
8 points,
similar but not near as convoluted as what that was. So it assigns a point range to new positions or upgraded positions if they change duties, which puts them in the pay grade or the classification system. From there, we then assign that to, based on the pay grades we have, the salary levels that are set for each of those grades. So a much easier system, but similar in the fact that there are certain criteria that have to be met that give them the points, and we don't make up the points. Their system is set up to give you, if it's A, then the points are 20. If it's B, then the points are 30. So there is no interpretation. There's no fluctuation of the numbers. It is strictly based on their program, so.
And it did say city commissioners' rates should be raised, and
Uh-huh.
county commissioners' salary.
We
actually
took
put in
them out of
more
the
hours
survey,
than they
sorry.
Lana,
We don't
to just take care of the problem that we've had almost continuously, want a new hire that could possibly make more money than a veteran on their pay grades.
Yes and no.
Because that's where our problem has been. That's what's always started all these
with the,
aggravated arguments. that we've
right.
had.
And with the fact that with the comp study adjustments we are doing, in addition to just raising minimum, yes, it's resolving that, and the fact that everyone moved with the scale, not just those below the minimum, which was the big problem.
Right.
By doing the CASI, the mid-year across-the-board increase instead of the performance increases and then the market adjustments, that has always made a difference as well.
Right.
Because when everyone moves, it doesn't bunch everyone up down at the beginning.
Right.
When you're doing performance increases and then market adjustments, and the only ones that move are the ones below the minimum, that's where that becomes a huge factor, which this one, the way Paul had it outlined, and the fact that we did the comp study adjustments for those that were veterans, I'll use that phrase,
That's fine.
the veterans of the departments, regardless of which ones, everyone moved with it, not just those below the minimum. So,
For the closing, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Now, 5 years down the road, when the comp study adjustments have all been administered, and then we go back into a market study adjustment to where we are just moving the market pay ranges, then we're gonna have to look at whether we do those continuing on mid-year 7/1, or whether we go back to January 1. But again, with the current process in place of administering the CASI, the across-the-board increase, that reduces that impact of the compaction at the beginning.
Do the employees get annual evaluations of their performance?
Yes,
Every employee?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it yearly?
yes, on their anniversary date, or promotion date, whichever one comes to, so their anniversary date changes upon promotion, but yes, annual evaluations upon their anniversary date.
Good presentation, thank you
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
for
you.
your
Thank you.
information.
Oh, so changes. It's court or promotion here yet. We are
We're way ahead of schedule.
about, let's see what we
They're
have
probably
ahead
just
of them.
wrapping up court.
She's not
right
It's
now.
Thursday, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just
we
those
do,
two.
we could do,
We can do finance.
Finance, yeah.
Finance is Friday morning
Take
at
it off
9:45.
tomorrow.
Let's do finance. 36, maybe finance and then a 5-minute break.
yeah.
Our budget is about as exciting as Carla's is. Essentially,
Yes, 36.
other than the changes for the results of the compensation study, our biggest increase is in financial services. And that's because the city implemented GASB 75 this year as was required. And because of that, we have to do an actuarial evaluation of our post-employment benefits every year rather than every other year. And so we increased that line to be able to pay for that for every year. That's about it for us.
Okay.
And I'm curious about the dues and membership, what was that?
The dues and memberships are for our GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association memberships. And then Stephanie, who's our payroll person, has a membership to the American Payroll Association. And also as a purchasing agent, she has a membership to the National Government Institute of Purchasing. So that's what those are for.
Yeah, thanks.
And the city gets audited each year. In fact,
Every
a
year.
couple months ago, you sent us out the audit for 2018, didn't you?
Yes, and that's part of the financial
Right.
services. All of, that proposed 52,000 for 2020 is for all of that's for the audit and for the actuarial evaluations for both the pensions and the post-employment benefits.
Yeah, I thought that was, well, it was a good audit in terms of how the city came out, but there was also, I didn't read every page, but it was very interesting in terms of the information in there. And this year, are we going with a different auditor? We made a decision last year to go with a different
Yes,
auditing firm?
we went to we went out to bid. I say bid, it was an RFP, a request for
Right.
proposals. It's a good idea to have a different set of eyes. We've been with the previous firm for 20 years, and nothing wrong with
Sure.
their service or nothing, there was no issues there. It's just that every now and then,
Sure.
you need to have a different perspective, and so that's what we did. And this firm is the equivalent of the other firm as far as skilled and services rendered and so on.
The other firm was based out of Topeka, right?
Yes.
Or- and then
Ridge,
this-
yeah.
and then
Yes, so is this one.
Okay, all right. And then would they have started working with you? How does it work? I mean, have they already started working with you on like the 2019? Have they started doing any work?
Well, what happened is, because they were a new firm,
Okay.
we had a preliminary meeting in December.
Okay.
And they came out to set up, because they didn't have any of our information.
Sure.
So they had to set up their files, they had to determine what the scope of the audit was going to be. And so
Okay.
we provided them with invoice records, payroll records. And when they asked for the conflict of interest statements from you all, that was part of their preliminary groundwork. And then they contacted our previous auditors to get the foundation.
Okay,
And then,
foundation.
right, and so they set all that up before our audit actually began. So for the 2019 audit that will be coming up, essentially, the changes will be based on whatever GASB decides is going to be, and there will be some GASB statements that we have to implement this year, so.
Thank you.
Brandon, aren't you going to a GASB conference or a training?
Yes, I'll be going to a training in October, actually, we need to book that. But yes, I'll be going to a training in October in, I believe, Chicago. It's an intensive accounting program, which is part of the shifting around in our budget is for lodging and travel. We're gonna kind of beef up some of our skills. Stephanie is taking a class right now for payroll to get her certification, so we're focusing on that right now.
So it's a full week-long
Yes.
intensive.
It's the Government Finance Officers Intermediate Governmental Accounting class, which will help strengthen governmental accounting skills.
I don't think I ever went to one of those.
The-
And I'm never gonna go to one. That's only
Well,
half the story. I'm never going to one of those.
So back when I was in college, there was a required governmental accounting class, and now they don't. Some universities will offer a 2-week exposure in an intermediate accounting class, but they don't really focus a lot on governmental accounting. And it's considerably different than
Oh,
private
yeah, I know
sector.
it is.
So the GFOA has started offering intensive classes to help beef up those skills. so.
My specialty is in budgeting, so I've done the accounting, but I'm beefing up my accounting skills.
Well, I hope you're looking forward to it.
Yeah, this will be
Good,
exciting.
good.
This is good.
It's exciting.
When we were hiring our financial director, it was difficult, wasn't it, to find somebody that had,
You usually found somebody with a budget background
Yeah.
or an accounting background.
but not
Because a
even
lot of
municipal.
organizations, Brandon comes from a larger organization and the budget people do budget and they
Yeah.
don't really have much exposure. But, you know, I don't wanna say too many nice things with them right there, but you look for smart people, who you can train, so that's what we
That's
look
good.
for.
That'll be of value to you.
30.
Okay.
Would you ask?
How old are you?
Might have found somebody younger.
And what did he answer?
30.
30.
I don't think you can ask that.
And that's, you can't even ask that. Yeah, you can't even ask that.
I see he had none of this, I was curious.
So if there's no other questions, just real quick, I wanted to share this, I keep meaning to share it. So we, for years, have gotten the GFOA audit.
CAFR award.
CAFR
for
award,
the financial
Um,
statements.
and so one of the Ruby's priorities was to do, this isn't saying we're doing anything better, but to get the GFOA Distinguished Budget Award, you just have to do different stuff and more stuff. It doesn't really affect the day-to-day budget, but it beefs up the budget and does more. So for 2019, for our last budget, for the first time, we were awarded the GFOA's Distinguished Budget Award. So now we're gonna get the CAFR, and the budget, set ourselves up to get that. So we got our first, pen, or Ruby did, I didn't do anything.
Oh.
Ruby and Brandon.
Good job. Nice,
So
nice.
that was a lot of expertise that Brandon brought to, in the budget stuff, so that's
Awesome.
all
That's
positive
great.
stuff, so. 5 minutes before probation and court, or 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Then that'll finish it out for the day, I believe.